Good morning guys, my name is Emily. Welcome to my Dark Tower reading project, #DTProject17. This is a video series in which I chronicle my reactions to reading the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. This is my first time reading the series. I am making predictions based on what I'm seeing. I'm attempting to make connections. If I say something that doesn't make sense because you've read the whole series, that is why. I haven't read the whole series yet. So that being said, let's get into my thoughts on Wizard and Glass, the fourth book in the Dark Tower series. So the fourth book was published in 1997, which is 6 years after the third book, The Wasteland, came out. That is a huge gap in time, especially considering the end of The Wastelands leaves us on a cliffhanger. Everybody is on Charlie the Choo-Choo and driving off to their most certain death. This book picks up right where that left off. And so for me, it's becoming hard to separate what happened at the end of book 3 and what happened at the beginning of book 4. They're kind of blurring together because 6 years later, King picks up right where he left off, like literally right where he left off. I can't imagine having read these in real time and waiting those 6 years. So this book has sort of 3 main chunks. The first part, like I said, is on Charlie the Choo-Choo. The second part, and the largest part of this book, is focused on Roland's childhood. We meet Susan, the love of Roland's life, essentially, who he has hinted at before in earlier books. We get to see some of the events that shaped Roland as a human. We also get to see some of the more magical, fantastical elements being brought forward that we are engaging with in our present narrative with Jake, Eddie, Susanna, and Roland, and Oi. I suppose we have to include Oi. We're seeing some crossover between Roland's past and Roland's present. I know, based on some of the things that I've been reading from you guys, that this book was not necessarily your favorite just because of that middle chunk being too long, like you didn't care for it. And I mean, I have to agree that there was some complete excess. There is a significant amount of time spent describing a woman who, when nobody is home, takes off all her clothes and licks her house clean. This book, like so many of King's books, does suffer with being slightly long-winded, and on the one hand it really fleshes out the world. On the other hand, do we need that much texture to tell this story? I get where people are coming from when they say that they don't like the length of the middle section on Roland's backstory. I personally really enjoyed it. I would read that section in isolation again. And then the third and final part of the book goes back into the present, back to our quartet with Roland, Eddie, Susanna, Jake, and Oi. And they go to the Emerald City. And so that's where we have our Wizard of Oz overlap. Wizard and Glass is probably my favorite book thus far, if I had to pick one. And I think I've been saying that about every single book as I get to the next one. Like, this is my favorite, now this is my favorite, now this is my favorite. That being said, this is still a really disjointed read, just because there are like 3 really distinct sections to the book. The majority of the book is a flashback, which is something, like, you do see a lot of flashbacks in fantasy, but usually it's not like the whole book, unless that's a narrative strategy like in the Kingkiller Chronicles, but that's the adventure you're set up for. This was almost entirely separate, and I enjoyed it. It's a very conflicting thing. I hope I'm conveying that to you. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed getting the backstory. It was something that I feel like I really needed, just to understand Roland more as a character. If you've been following along, you know that up to this point, I am not Roland's biggest fan. I went from really disliking him to kind of tolerating him and being more understanding, I suppose. And now I feel like I'm even more understanding. I don't condone Roland's behavior. I still think he's an unlikable character, and not all characters have to be likable, I know that. But this at least gives me more context and more understanding, and I appreciate that. So I think in terms of writing and storytelling itself, the quality there has gone down with this book. Like, I really do think that book 2 has been some of the best Stephen King storytelling that I've seen thus far, both in his career and within this series. I think my Goodreads rating for this book is fairly high, just because I tend to rate on Goodreads based on how I'm feeling about the book, less than on like the quality of the book itself. I am looking forward to the next book. I'm looking forward to getting more time on the actual adventure. Keep tagging me in your posts on Instagram. I love seeing photos of you reading the books and following along with the series. Do keep in touch. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.